Hello, I am Great Mile. I'm Miles. Anyway, just finished watching the Good Samaritan episode of Seinfeld. I really like this episode. This episode had one of the moments where that I remember from like when I was watching Seinfeld, way back years ago. I remember watching this with my dad. It has the scene in this. It's definitely one of my favorite lines from this episode, and maybe all of Seinfeld we get to see. But it's Elaine goes to George, or I should probably explain the context of it all first. So, I feel like this is another one of these episodes, kind of like, is it in this? Kind of like The Fix Up. This is it feels like one of those episodes where a lot really happens. And really it does. Each character has their own little thing. Elaine and Kramer's are kind of minor. Especially Elaine's, actually. But, so, what goes on is that Jerry, he's driving, this is the beginning of the episode, he's driving and the car in front of him hits a car in his neighborhood, and so Elaine's kind of the catalyst to the plot to this episode. I realize that's the fire alarm or whatever, smoke detector. It's low on batteries, so hence the beeping, the constant beeping. Anyway, so Jerry follows the car or tails the car at Elaine's proposal or whatever. I want to say begetting, but I'm not sure that's the correct use of the word. So he kind of confronts the driver, who's a redhead, a lady redhead, and so she's attractive, and so he hits it off with her, and doesn't really confront her about the accident, and makes her want to pay, and so relationship out of that happens. And so, since he goes on a date with her, that means Elaine takes George to this dinner date with a married couple. And so George kind of gets under the skin of the husband, but kind of earns the attraction of the wife. And the notable thing is that when the wife sneezes, he says, "God bless you." And the husband takes major offense to this. Or he gets really upset about this. And so what will happen with that? What happens with George's storyline is that the wife kind of pursues an affair with him, and so another one of my favorite lines from this is that George is like, "An affair? That's so adult." I don't know. It's a very funny line. It's kind of, I think it's a funny thought to think of George as this kind of he perceives himself as a sort of a child, I guess, in that regard. And that you associate adultery with maturity. It's just kind of a very funny concept, I think. And so they have an affair, and she uses Elaine as the cover person, as the not the scapegoat, the alibi. She uses Elaine as the alibi, but she doesn't tell Elaine. And so the husband calls, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know where she is. I haven't seen her all day." And so the husband puts two and two together and figures out it's George, and he's like, "I'm gonna sew his ass to his face. I'm gonna sew his ass to his face. Gonna twist his neck around until his lips are his eyebrows." Angry New Yorker things. And so this comes down to kind of when all the characters are in Jerry's apartment. This leads to my favorite line of the episode, when Elaine tells George, he's just like, he said he's gonna sew your ass to your face. It's a very funny line, but I think it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus's the whatever her delivery, which I just find just kind of made that line just very funny. Because that big reluctance, and it's kind of like that. Yeah. Anyway, on Jerry's side of the story is so the victim of the car accident is this woman in the apartment building whom he's had a crush on for apparently a year. And so when he kind of threatens to tell us about the accident, his girlfriend is quite angry, and a lot of very violent imagery in this episode. She's like, I'm gonna rip out your chest hair with my teeth and carve my initials in your brain. Like holy shit, man. Like, that's just crazy. But yeah, very violent imagery, very violent guest characters in this episode. And so in order to avoid getting the crap kicked out of him, he kind of goes to the lady and he offers to write the check and stuff. So she assumes that he did it. And it's one of those, ooh, dramatic irony. And you feel bad for Jerry. And though it's kind of interesting, it's interesting that you would feel bad for Jerry. And no, you don't really feel bad for George, but you do root for these characters. And I think this has been brought up millions of times by other people in various articles and whatnot, or by the characters, the cast themselves, the writers, blah blah blah. These are horrible people. Like, the main characters of Seinfeld, for the most part, like, or not, I don't want to say horrible, but they've done some really shady stuff. They're kind of bad people. They're rogues, I guess you could say. I'm not sure what the proper D&D term would be, but they're rogues. Let's just put it like that. Right? Like there's a scene in this episode where like Jerry and George are just kind of thinking to them, it's like they're kind of justifying their actions. You know, Jerry's kind of like, yeah, he's withheld information about a crime. Then he's thinking about like basically manipulating somebody into being in a relationship with them, and George is just committing adultery, I guess. Not as serious of a crime, it seems, in comparison, but who knows. But it's just very interesting. Like, I think that's maybe some of the pull of Seinfeld. Like they're bad characters, I guess, or they're bad people. But it's like, then again, aren't we all? I mean, that's not to say they have good qualities about them at all. But it's not some. I think they're average people. They're like, they're not like these virtuous people, but they're not exactly like horribly evil, like twirling a mustache sort of thing. They're caught in the game of life, I think, and this is just how they convince through it. So. And it's just, I don't know, it's interesting that where you kind of find yourself cheering for them in like times like these where they're doing just horrible stuff. Also, Kramer started having seizures to Mary Hart's voice. Funny bit, very slapsticky, very funny Kramer-esque humor. Nothing else I can say. I loved he had a Hawaiian shirt in this. It's like checkered. It was like black and white checkered. They need to. I know there's somewhere on this on the internet where they have Kramer's shirts and you can buy them. I know somewhere it's there. If I believe hard enough, it'll appear. But yeah, loved Kramer's outfit, and Kramer kind of. I think it's the first time he's done it to Jerry, but this is the first time he's done it at all, where he ends up getting the girl in the end, like either George or Jerry's like their interests or whatever, and then at the end of the episode, Kramer walks away with them. So, just very funny, very enjoyable episode. Really like this episode. Might be one of my favorites from season 3, and perhaps all of Seinfeld. Maybe. Again, have to see all of season 3. Almost done with it, and have to watch all of Seinfeld. Not nearly as close to finishing that, but. Almost at 10 minutes now, so enjoy. God bless you. Don't let anybody sew your ass to your face.